Well, welcome to the Pilgrim on the 405 on this wonderful sunshiny day here in Southern California. We're talking to Jared Rosenthal, who is in New York, and I don't think it is as sunny and warm in New York as it is here. So welcome, Jared.
Thank you. Good morning.
So Jared is working with a platform to help small businesses hire fearlessly at staffglass.io. So Jared, tell us a little bit about your, what is project about?
Well, Staff Glass is really a platform for small and medium-sized businesses, entrepreneurs, something that I feel really passionately about as an entrepreneur myself, as a way to provide them a platform to have the resources that larger businesses would have at a fraction of the cost, because we're really challenged by especially the acceleration of this trend during the pandemic of bigger businesses growing and smaller businesses falling by the wayside. And we want to give small businesses an opportunity to compete. So the first phase of Staff Glass is allowing small businesses to compete on the onboarding process, to have an easy, fully cloud-based platform for integrated onboarding of employees.
Well, so when you say small business, how do you define small business?
Well, really, we work with thousands of businesses, and they range from an individual, let's say a guy who owns his own truck and needs to do complete with certain regulatory requirements with regard to drug testing and such, and companies that grow to 100, 150, even up to 500 employees is still sort of in that medium business range. When you compare with something like Amazon, who hired 400,000 employees in the last 8 months, 500 employees is a drop in the bucket.
When I work with my clients at the entrepreneurial operating system, what we look for is 10 to 250 employees. So it sounds like we're working with similar niches.
Absolutely.
All right. So when somebody, what kind of problems would somebody have that would cause them to call you?
So the platform currently facilitates that entire new hire process. So if you want to bring somebody on, there's certain things you have to do, such as get them a drug test or run a background check, occupational health services, such as potentially checking their antibodies to COVID or getting them a vaccine to COVID, or other type of tests that have always been done for occupational health over time, like pre-employment physicals or other titers or vaccines. And we put all of that into one platform. So, rather than looking around the country for a clinic for a drug test and trying to find a background check company, then looking for a clinic for somebody else in a different area and having to work with 3 different softwares, we just put it all in one place. So that it's the power of a single employee record that facilitates a lot of the efficiencies here. So just by having one record, you don't have to enter and find three different softwares and find 3 different systems and track down results and remember passwords. Everything's in one place, all over the country at the touch of a button.
So now, if a company, a lot of the companies that I work with have outsourced HR people, would this be valuable to them as well?
Sure. I mean, if you're referring to the outsourced, the HR companies that do that, absolutely. We work with a lot of staffing companies. They appreciate it right off the bat because they have to do this all the time. So, if they're hiring 10, 20, 50 people a week, it's so much easier for them to just have one place to go and with just enter a zip code, get your clinic, and send off the barcode to that individual. It shows up at the home. They walk into the clinic. The other real advantage for small businesses now is a lot of us were still paper based in some ways, or more touchy feely, hands on. Look someone in the eye, hand them a piece of paper. And with work from home, you just can't do that most of the time. You have things like Zoom, but how do you get somebody a piece of paper? So by making the whole process digital, it just allows small businesses to achieve that, those scalability opportunities that big businesses, take for granted.
Mm-hmm. So now, are there other companies that are doing similar things to what you're doing?
There are certainly HR software companies. There's certainly other drug testing companies, background check companies. The power of what we do is bring it all into one platform to make it much more efficient and much more easy to use.
Mhm. And so you're primarily working with onboarding.
Correct. Staff Glass currently is an onboarding platform with some other modules in the work that I can talk about. But currently, it's an onboarding platform for all the services you need to bring someone on. Let me tell you just like a brief anecdote. I mean, we worked with one company that was hiring hundreds of seasonal workers for one of the big box retailers for Christmas last year, and we started to talk to them. They were doing some drug testing with us, and they mentioned, no, they're doing background checks, but that was with another company. I started getting, I said, hey, we do that also. I said, well, what are you doing for, payroll? And they had another company for payroll, and then they had another company for time and attendance. And then the workers were texting pictures of their time cards in that they were entering into another system. And I said, well, we're using that system because the retailer needs that one for you to get paid. Nope, we use another system for that. It was unbelievable. I mean, they had 7 to 10 discrete systems with separate logins, tracking things separately. How can you possibly run a business that way? How can you possibly keep track of everything? Mm-hmm. And, by pulling that all together and using that sort of as a use case to say, hey, let's build this in one place, make it sensible, wipe out all that waste. And of course, all the errors that come with it. I mean, you just can't imagine how many errors you have when you type the same thing 7 times, So
was one of the modules you're talking about going to be payroll?
We're working towards that. Yeah, we're starting with the onboarding, and we're working backwards all the way through the initial point of the hiring process. So you can imagine all the things that happen when someone looks for a job. First, company posts a job. A person goes out and searches, for what opportunities are out there. Then there's a job application. We're going to be launching a module for that. Then there's the analysis of the job application. Then there's the interview process, which can now be done digitally over Zoom if the company wants to do it that way. The evaluation of the candidates, then new hire paperwork, and then at some point it gets to where we are now, which is okay. Let's make an offer. We have e-sign capabilities built in already. So let's get that offer letter signed, get that background waiver signed, run the background check, get them their drug test. Once we pull all that into the system, you're ready to onboard, and then we move on to things like running payroll and ongoing HR activities like annual evaluations and stuff.
Well, one of the things that I would like to see in a system like this is, what does the first 90 days look like? What is in the calendar for training, for onboarding process? How does that fit? And that should be, to my way of thinking, that should be a non-negotiable. This has to happen, that you have some sort of plan in there for how you're going to train these people and bring them on board in the first 90 days.
Absolutely. And having been a small business owner myself, we sometimes let certain things slip by the wayside. We don't have a formalized training program yet. So the idea with Staff Glass is to create a place for all that in the same place, not having to go look for another platform or whatever, but just say, all right, we just onboarded them. We'll send them that offer letter, but contingent on that offer letter, we'll say, here's your plan for the next 90 days. And it's going to track what happens. It's going to make sure you completed the course. Ideally, you would pass a test and say, all right, now I am qualified, or I've passed this training, or I've absorbed what I've been meant to learn during that period.
We are in the process of finishing a refinance with a company called Loan Depot here, and it's amazing. I responded to an email from them because my old mortgage was 6 months old, but the rate dropped so much that it was time. It's a good thing to refinance. All I had to do was say, do it, click about 12 buttons, and next week they're going to come to the house and we're signing documents. That was it. That's amazing, isn't it?
You know what, the difference between an elegant software solution and a clunky one is incredible. And when it's elegant, sometimes you don't even realize, you just go, oh, that was easy, and you don't realize how much work went into making it that smooth.
Hmm.
That's our goal. We want our software to be elegant. You want to feel good using it and be like, wow, that was a breeze. And that enables us as entrepreneurs and small businesses to get back to doing what we really love to do, which is the work, the content of the work that we're of the business that we're running, not paperwork and things like that. So when you get an elegant solution, it just feels good, and that's our goal. I'm sort of obsessed with what we call the UX, the whole user experience.
All right, so talk to me about what have you observed as the user experience during COVID for people, for
Yeah,
companies?
well, I mean, sure. I mean, just it's the recognition that you need to have everything cloud based. And when I say cloud based, meaning you just, obviously you can't have paper. It's just that's a non-negotiable. If people are still tracking things like that, storing records, especially important legal records like HR records, you just can't do it anymore, right? And then being able to do things digitally that utilize what people have, devices in their pockets, sending barcodes to phones rather than mailing things out. I mean, these are sort of really sort of like prerequisites now. You just got to do them. And of course it's accelerated other trends that, the more nimble you are as a business digitally, the better you're doing. The less prepared you were to be digital in terms of delivering your own goods and services, the worse off you're doing during COVID.
So have you noticed that companies are making that switch?
Well, I think what happened with COVID is it happened so fast that if you weren't already prepared, you would have a lot of difficulty making that switch, because probably you were resisting it all along. And, one thing that I would say is just, as a business person, scalability is so important. We all were passionate about what we do, but also, you want to grow it. You want to be able to increase your income. You want to be able to increase the size of your business, right? And digital just provides a way of doing that is so much greater than anything else in terms of scalability, that there's just really no alternative. And if that's not clear to you yet, you really have to look at that as a business, because to be able, let's take one example of my call center. So we started without any digital orders at all. When I started Health Street, which is the company that does the drug testing, we put a bunch of people in the room. The more the phone rang, the more people I had to hire, the more people I had to train. Great. We still have a call center, but we're doing about 10 times the business we did when there's nothing digital, because when the phone rings, there's only so many calls you can take at the same time. And if you need to hire and you need to put them through a 90 days of training, you can't nimbly react to an increase in demand. With the website, if you're processing the orders online, there's no limit. I mean, theoretically there's a limit, but you're really not going to hit that. If you're conducting a reasonable amount of business, you can go from 10 to 100 in an hour and handle that without a blink, because it's all digital. At a certain point, yes, you need more servers and technical stuff, but the ability to scale is just so far greater. And so if you're not doing it, if you weren't doing that already, you're certainly scared now because of COVID, and a lot of business, unfortunately, went out of business because they weren't able to deliver their products directly. But it's just a better way to do it if you figure out where in your business you can digitize and start there.
Well, I have an idea that what the businesses that went out of business were not able to creatively deal with the COVID constraints.
Right.
And that just doubled down on the switch that was happening, the change in the way we do business. And so the businesses that went out, the people who were entrepreneurs, my belief is they're going to come back. They will create new businesses, but it won't be on the platforms that they had before.
Yeah, well, certainly not if they went out of business and they realized what the deficiencies were. So I think that's the real lesson. But the scary part, and this is a real urgency right now is that there's a real threat to small business just in general. Think if Amazon hired 400,000 people in the last 8 months, that's 400,000 people that are no longer working at probably another small business. And why is that happening? And what can entrepreneurs do to push back against that effectively? From a cost standpoint, we got to be able to deliver products that can compete. And also just from, a labor standpoint, we need to, do we want to live in a society where 90% of the people are working for, 10 or 20 huge companies, and then left unchecked, if we don't have ways of running good, small and medium-sized businesses, that's where it's headed.
Well, I agree with you. I mean, it's creating good small businesses, and when you talk about products, Amazon doesn't other than their Alexa products, they're not a product company. They're a logistics company. And what I've discovered is that a lot of very creative entrepreneurs are using that platform. I just finished a book, right? Now, if I had done traditional publishing, it could have taken me 2 or 3 years to write the book and get it published. And I wrote that book in 2 weeks. It's 10,000 pages, and it'll be up on Amazon by the end of this week. Now,
that's fantastic. But
yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, you own the content. You wrote it, and you're using that platform to deliver that content.
Yes, and that to me is the wave of the future, is creating the products, whether it's it's a textual product or any other product, but using the logistics that Amazon has perfected. I mean, Amazon has not only created its own logistics, but they have influenced the other companies around them to change their logistics. Right now I heard this morning that Best Buy, you can order from Best Buy, and if it's local, if it's in a local store, they will ship it from the local store to you rather than from their warehouse. That's a shift, and people are becoming, to survive, you have to be nimble and creative, which to me is entrepreneurial.
Absolutely. And I think another part of this is taking a look at, aspects of the business that you hadn't considered before. Let's look at your example here of, let's say you owned a small business, you're in a high traffic area, so you're paying a lot of rent. You have high real estate costs. In New York, it's a huge issue, right? So I look at that and I say, well, if you're a small business and you're selling electronics and you're going to ship from your store, does it make the most sense in the long run? In the short run, you have a lease, you got to be there. You're there anyway, do your deliveries. But does it make sense maybe to get a warehouse in a lower rent area and do your deliveries from there? Does it make sense as a restaurant to, if you turned into a ghost kitchen for 90% of your business, do you need the real estate cost at all? Maybe that's not what they want to hear, because it's not that dream of running that restaurant and having your ambiance or whatever. But from a financial standpoint, does it make more sense to either move to a ghost kitchen or create one separately to do all that delivery, where you can get efficiencies, lower rent, maybe more effective delivery options as well?
Yeah, because to me, these are the entrepreneurial questions. And these are the conversations that lead to small businesses. And that's what got us to all the small businesses before COVID. And COVID hastened and then also brought its own constraints that eliminated a lot of businesses because they weren't able to manage that. And so when they come back, I believe they're going to be able to create systems that are protected. They're no longer vulnerable to those particular kinds of shifts.
Yeah. Yep. And I think, and part of that is getting rid of any costs that you don't need to have. So
Right.
If you don't need to have a cost of, let's say, publishing a book in paper and stocking it and keeping inventory and shipping it and dealing with all of that. And then don't. Why would you do that? Amazon we use for their cloud services, AWS, Amazon Web Services. Why buy? I've over the years bought a bunch of servers. Probably spent 50 grand in. What do you need that for? When you can just pay Amazon to use what you need only when you need it, and at the exact moment you need more. Whereas before I'd say, okay, I need another server. Let's pay another 10 grand. And no, you only go up that 2% increase exactly what you need when you need it. And, so those things just make it impossible to compete if you're not doing that, because it's so much more effective.
Well, when electricity first came in around the turn of the 20th century, first came in, companies had their own generators.
Right.
Right? And it wasn't until people like General Electric put together a network, a system where you bought electricity. And that's exactly how we buy electricity today. We don't buy big bulk electricity. We pay for electricity as we use it, which is what you're doing with AWS, right?
Yeah, exactly. And
so that's exactly what I'm doing with books. When I ship that content to Amazon, they make it ready. I can deliver it via ebook on Kindle, or I can print on demand. It costs me $2.15 for that 60-page book to be delivered to me.
Wow.
Now, somebody else is going to pay $6, $8, $10 on Amazon, but I can give it away to my prospects and clients for $2.15.
Wow. And I would also say that the speed with which you can do it. I mean, you mentioned you did it in 2 weeks, but the speed compared to going through a publishing process, having meetings, flying somewhere to talk to a publisher, I mean, the amount of more business you can generate just by saving all that wasted time. And that's really the message. Get rid of anything that you don't need to be spending time on. If you don't need to be, having a server closet and checking the air conditioning to make sure that the server is cool enough, get rid of all that expense. If you don't have to fly anywhere, you can do the meeting on Zoom, get rid of that expense, because you have to be nimble. And all that time savings allows you to then focus your creative energy on your core business.
Well, your core business, and the core business is producing the product or the service, providing the service, and then it's also being creative and strategic about the things we're talking about now, about how that business is nimble, how it can deal with constraints, how it deals with surprises, and that's the leadership team. Because in the world that we're coming to, my discovery is that one person can't do it all. You have to have a leadership team that you trust, who will take responsibility, who are experts in their field or can become experts in their field, and they become the ones who make that company run.
Yes, and let me, you've really hit upon just a real raw issue in the business world, and I think the issue is this: when you're really good at something, that's what got you to where you are, and you're maybe unsure of what the next level skill is, or maybe you're unsure if someone else can do it as well as you can. But here's the problem: if you can never push it down to the next level, and you never push that envelope to go yourself to the next level, then you're always going to be doing what you're doing, and ultimately that boxes you in, and your company won't grow past a certain point. If you really want to grow, it has to transcend your own ability to do that work, and you have to have other people around you that can do it. And if you don't trust them, then you're going to be doing it anyway. Then you're going to be doing it yourself, because you're going to be checking everything twice, and then what's the point? So, it's much easier said than done. I will say, I'm not saying it because I think that experience is easy. It's real difficult, but you have to keep in mind that that's the goal. It has to be.
Well, tell me, how did your business start? Was it your idea?
Yeah, I am sort of a guy that always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but didn't do it right away. I had some businesses in middle school and high school doing little things, but I wanted to go into healthcare, and I didn't see a opportunity because the barriers to entry are so high. There's just millions of dollars. I started helping low income communities get health insurance, and it's just a mega business, hundreds of millions of dollars and stuff. But I